Hello everyone and welcome to the Kiki London YouTube channel. My name's Amanda and in today's video we are going to be looking at how to encapsulate chunky glitter using the new Kiki London Sculpting Gel. Now although it is a sculpting gel, in today's video we're actually going to be using it over a nail tip. So I hope you all enjoy watching. Now I have already done all of the cuticle prep off camera, so I'm going to come in and apply my tip. Now of course when you are grabbing your tips you do need to size them up first of all. I've been doing my own nails long enough now that I know what size fits which finger. Then I'm just going to apply a small amount of glue to the very edge of that nail tip. You don't want to apply too much because glue kind of works like less is more, so you only need a little bit to apply your nail tips. Then I like to angle the nail tip and pull down the nail, making sure that it's made really good contact with the natural nail and that it's covering all the edges. Like with your sculpting forms, you want to make sure that your sculpting form is making good contact with the natural nail so that you're covering those stress points at the edges. Very similar with your tips, so I'm making sure that it comes down onto the sidewalls of my natural nail, giving it a little pinch to make sure that that glue has all stuck down nicely. And then once it has stuck down, I'm going to come in and shorten the nail tip and keep it just to a more, this is still quite a long nail, so more medium to long length nail. Then I'm going to take the Kiki London file and just neaten up that shape a little bit and make sure that the edges are nice and even and symmetrical to the nail or whichever shape that you are doing. Now one thing to bear in mind when you are using any kind of gel or with tips is that if you're not using matte tips, you need to make sure that you're going to remove that shine from the tip, because otherwise you might find that even when you have cured your gel it will peel off from the tip because it's a shiny surface. So I'm coming over with the 180 grit side of my file and just gently removing the shine from the nail. Now if I'd have thought about this design, I knew that I was going for a bit of a glass look with my glitter, I would have buffed rather than filed the nail tip, because filing it does put a lot more scratches into the surface of the tip, which doesn't matter if you're going to be coming over with a colour, but if you're coming over with clear or an iridescent style glitter like I did today, you're not going to get as much of a crystal clear finish, so it's better to buff the tip rather than file it. I did also with that file blend in the edge of that tip to the natural nail very gently. You want to be super careful that you're not over filing the natural nail plate. Then once I have got my tip applied and it's buffed or filed and everything is done, we're then going to move on to applying our primer. Now the primer does only need to be applied to your natural nail plate, and this does air dry as well, so you don't need to pop it into cure. And then for my base coat today I've gone for the Kiki London clear rubber base, and I'm going to apply a thin coat of this to the entire nail. Now this is personal preference or however you're feeling on the day, or maybe depending on the design you're doing. Because I was doing a glass clearish design, I decided to apply the gel to the entire nail, so across the natural nail and down on to the tip of the nail as well. Now you don't need to apply your base coat to the tip of the nail, so if you prefer you can just apply it to the natural nail, which I'm sure you would have seen me do if you've watched any of the easy build up videos that we've done with tips. So moving on, we are going to be using the crystal clear sculpting gel today, and we're going to be using the Kiki London Polygel Brush to apply this. Now I'm going to start off by taking a small amount of the crystal clear gel, and we're basically going to apply a thin layer to the entire nail. Now when you are applying glitter to the nail, glitter isn't going to provide any strength or structure to the nail, so I like to sandwich it between two layers of clear gel, or depending on the design you're going for, rather than using clear on this step you could come in and use either a pink or a nude or a white, even depending on the design you're doing. I decided to go in with clear just because I was going for that iridescent glass look. So I'm starting off by just applying a thin coat of this to the entire nail. So I started by rolling it off my brush like I have done in the previous videos to get a nice neat cuticle line and making sure that it's covering that nail bed area. But then as we start moving down the nail, I'm kind of using brush strokes to pull and feather it down, just so that we're thinning it out to the tip. I wanted it to be ever so slightly thicker on that nail bed area so that we've got a good base, and so that it gives us an even surface where that natural nail meets the edge of the tip. You know, you're going to have an ever so slight raise where you've applied your tip. These tips are quite thin, like most tips are nowadays, but I like to make sure that it's just that little bit thicker on the natural nail bed to give us a good base and a nice smooth surface to work on. And then I'm just thinning it out as we get towards the tip of the nail. Now, as you can see, the crystal clear sculpting gel is super clear, but you can still see those little scratches that were on the tip from filing. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the spatula end of this brush, which is brilliant for doing any kind of glitter application, because I'm actually going to mix my glitter into my sculpting gel. So I'm going to take a small amount of this and apply it to my palette. Now I say a small amount, I did make up a little bit more glitter than what's needed for one nail design, but that's because I plan on finishing this set off and doing a couple more nails in this design using this glitter. So I mixed up a little bit more than was needed, because then I can pop that into a pot, as long as it's not a clear pot. So if you use a similar pot, like a black pot like the sculpting gel is in, or I have a couple of metal pots that are nice and small, so any excess glitter gel mix you can keep as long as it's not going to be affected by sunlight. So that's why I was saying a dark pot, so you can save any excess glitter gel that you've created if you have created a little bit too much. Then what I'm basically doing is adding in 2 raw glitter mixes to create my own custom glitter mix, and then those chunkier glitter pieces on the top there, I'm not going to mix them in with this glitter mix. I'm going to apply them separately on top, and I'll explain why when we get to those. So I applied a fair amount of glitter, so there was more glitter to gel. So I'm going to just start by mixing this together, but then I do come in and add on a little bit more of the crystal clear sculpting gel, just so that it's not too thick that it's going to be unworkable. So I'm just going to come in and apply a little bit more of this. Now it is really important to get a good ratio between your glitter and gel, because if you have not enough glitter, then you're going to have to apply loads of it to get a nice even coverage, and then you're going to end up with a really thick bulky nail. But if you have too much glitter to gel, then it's really tricky to apply, because it's going to feel really thick on your brush. So this was quite a good consistency, especially to say that this was 2 glitter mixes, one that's quite fine and then one that's got quite a few chunky pieces in there. So I'm going to take my brush, scoop up a generous amount of that glitter gel mix and start rolling it off of my brush using a circular motion to start applying it to the nail. And then basically I'm doing exactly the same as what we would have done when we've used either of the pink or the nude shade colors. So I'm rolling it off my brush, taking it up towards that cuticle area, and then just working it from side to side. But I am trying to not build up too much thickness, because like I said, there's not much structure in there's no structure in the glitter, but because we've mixed it in with the gel, it does still have a bit of structure to it. But I don't want to apply it too thickly, because we are going to need to come in and encapsulate, 1 to protect that glitter, and 2 to build up the rest of the nail. So I'm trying my best to just work it from side to side and get an even coat of the glitter. And then I'm also wanting to make sure that I get a few of those chunky pieces in there as well, and that they're placed randomly down the nail, not all scattered together or clumped together, sorry, in one area. So if you feel as though you've not got enough chunky glitter pieces, rather than picking up another ball of gel, you can do exactly what I did there and just pick up a particular chunky glitter piece and drop it down into that wet glitter gel mix. Then we're going to come in with another ball of gel. For this kind of design, I felt it was easier to work with smaller balls of gel rather than going in with one big ball and trying to work it over the nail, because when you're doing that, a lot of the time you can end up pulling a lot of the glitter down towards the tip of the nail and not having much coverage on the nail bed area. So here you can see so far I've got a fairly nice thin layer over the entire nail. As you can see in this glitter, it's got really fine pastel pink glitter pieces in there as well, and then we've got those fine iridescent pieces and then a few chunky florals. So here I'm just making sure that it's nice and even. We've got right along the side walls, there's no gaps where there isn't any glitter. And then I'm just trying to make sure that the application is nice and neat on the side walls as well. Now, if you do find that you want to add on a few more chunky pieces, this is when you can come in and do that. And I'm trying to do this without adding any additional gel to the nail, just placing those down and then blending them in. Now, this is what our coverage looks like at the moment. I'm really happy with how much we've covered with the finer glitters, but now I want to come in with these super chunky iridescent glitter flakes, or shapes, sorry. Now, this is a mix. I don't know, I've had these glitters in my drawer for years, but this is a mix of all different shaped iridescent pieces. You've got some stars, some butterflies, some flowers, some little moons. So I'm just picking them out with my gel brush because it's got a small amount of gel on it, so they're going to stick to the brush, and then I'm just dropping them down into that wet glitter gel mix, just placing them, layering them over the previous glitters that we've applied. And it's really hard to see them right now, but once you have encapsulated, filed and top coated, they look absolutely amazing because they catch the light differently to the other metallic glitters, so it just gives off a super pretty effect. So I did leave this for a few seconds to self level because we've played around with that gel quite a lot. So you can either hold your nail upside down or just give it a few seconds and it will self level out, and then we're going to pop that in to cure. Now it's time to come in and encapsulate. Oh, and I also wanted to mention the reason why I applied those super chunky glitters without any gel or without mixing them in is because then this way you're going to be adding them without adding any additional gel. So you're not going to be creating a really thick sandwich layer, or that layer in the middle of your sandwich. I really hope that makes sense, but if it don't and you're confused, pop me a comment below and I will be happy to help. Now, because we've applied a chunky glitter, the nail is going to be a little bit uneven, so I start off before encapsulating by just wiping a thin layer of gel over the entire nail. This is going to help get into any nooks and crevices that that glitter has created, so that when you come in with this ball of gel to build up your nail, it's going to float over nicely. It's not going to have to struggle to get in any little gaps between your glitters or any areas where you might have your glitter sticking up. So it works very similar to when you are doing a slip layer with your builder gel in a bottle. So now what I'm doing with my builder ball of gel, that first ball of gel, I'm coming in, rolling it off my brush, using both circular motions and going side to side with my brush to start building and encapsulating the nail. And I'm leaving the bulk of that ball of gel back in the back third of the nail, just away from the cuticle area, to start creating the apex. This is where your strength and structure is, and for a long nail like this, you really want to make sure that your strength and structure is on point, otherwise you are going to risk breaking the nail, which then could damage your natural nail. Then once I've done that first ball, I don't want it to take it all the way down to the tip of the nail. I'm going to come in with a second ball of gel, blend that back into the first ball of gel, and then continue with those same motions of using circular and rolling motions to get the gel from your brush onto the nail, and then just taking it from side to side. And then I'm just running a little bit down the side of the nail here, as I hadn't taken it to the side enough and my sidewalls looked a little bit thin and a little bit uneven and bumpy. So just by running your brush along the sides, you're going to fix that. And then looking at the nail, it just looked a little bit too thin for my liking, so I come in with another ball of gel, but I'm just going to run this down the center of the nail, because this is where we want the spine of the nail to be. This is where we want a bit more strength and structure, so we need a little bit more thickness. So I'm literally going to run that down the center of the nail and then hold that nail upside down. It's going to help melt that spine, that gel we've put for the spine, into the center of the nail and even everything out. And by holding it upside down, you're pulling that gel into where you want it to go. You're just going to let gravity do its thing, basically. We then popped that into cure, and I was just showing you guys there how much thickness I have built up at the end of the nail. It's not super thick. I'd say this is how thick I would wear this length of nail, but we have thinned it out as we get to the tip, because you don't want your tip to be super thick. So we then wiped off the tacky inhibition layer that's left behind after curing, and then I'm going to begin filing. Now, one of the things I love about the sculpting gel is it does self level beautifully, and it's fairly easy to apply even if you are a beginner, so there's minimal filing to do. So what I like to do is I'm just going to use a mix of the 100 and 180 grit side of my file to sharpen up the sidewalls and just debulk those sidewalls a little bit, and then I'm going to come over the entire surface of the nail with the 180 grit side just to smooth everything out. If there is any application if your application is a little bit uneven, this is just going to help smooth out any bumps in the nail. And you could see the difference there after filing as well. It just looked a lot more refined, a lot more contoured. The sidewalls were nice and sharp. Then we're going to come in and buff, and again I'm going to use a combination of the 100 grit side to begin with, and then I'm going to flip the buffer over and use the 180 grit side just to give us a nice smooth finish. And this is going to buff out any scratches that were left behind from your file. You are then going to want to make sure you give the nail a really good clean. I like to go over first of all with the Kiki London dust brush, and then I'll come in and wipe away any dust that's remaining on the nail with an alcohol wipe. And then for today's nail, I've decided to go for the Kiki London No Wipe Rubber Top Coat because I plan on trying to finish this set of nails for myself, and I love to wear the rubber top coat on my own nails because I am quite hard on my nails. I don't tend to be the best person at following aftercare advice, and I find the rubber top coat really hard wearing for people like me. So I've applied a thin coat of this to the entire nail. As you can see, it really brings back the shine after filing and buffing, and we then popped this in to cure. And then lastly, we're going to finish off with the Fresh Rose cuticle oil. So I'm just going to apply a drop of this down at that cuticle area, give it a good massage in to help nourish and replenish those cuticles. And then this is the finished result. So you can see how crystal clear this gel is, because just look how beautiful it shows up these glitters. And I really love how it encapsulates over those iridescent glitters and just makes them look absolutely beautiful. I can't wait to do a lot more long gel nail designs now that we have the sculpting gel. And if you are not 100% confident with sculpting and more of a tip gel, then you can see that the sculpting gel works brilliant with the tips as well. I really hope you've all enjoyed today's video. If you did, please do give it a thumbs up, leave us a comment below, and hit that subscription button if you haven't already. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Lots of love. Take care. Bye bye.